Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our Business Transition Roadmap. Our podcast today, we're going to take a little bit of a different path forward with a two-part series that we're going to record. And it's actually going to be about myself and my journey on my transition. And we have Andrea Carpenter here, who is a person that I've known now for almost a year, and we've been thinking about our transition. So let me tell you a little bit about my story and how this all came about. For many, many years, we've been doing transition strategy work for a lot of different clients internationally and here in the United States. And one of the things that really spurs business owners to start the process isn't actually their need for it. It's actually the team's need for it. So I had my team together. We were in a retreat a couple of years ago, and we were doing, the regular SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And we were just going through that. What's working, what's not working was the activity. And one of the biggest things that came out of that exercise was that the team was very concerned. At the time I was 59. I was coming up on my 60th birthday. I thought that was pretty cool. And they were going, you're getting a little older here. And what happens if something happens to you? Because they are investing their lives and their energy and all of the things, their livelihood into the company and into what we're doing. And then, what would happen if one day they woke up and I was gone and the business was dependent on me? And what's the plan? So out of that, I made a commitment that day to the team that I was going to start my own transition work. So even though we were doing that for everybody else, I decided that I guess it was time for me to do that. And so I asked one of my teammates if they would make me the client and I could be that, and they would walk me through as a guide to help me explore my side and help me see what I couldn't see. Because, as you walk through it, I'll be like, oh yeah, this is my plan. But they had another perspective to ask, Elizabeth, are you thinking about this? And have you considered this? And I see a hole here. So I asked one of our guides to be my guide. I went into the client role, and it was a really great experience. So fast forward, got that done. That took about 9 months for me to get through that. And it gave me lots of time to think. And then I'll tell the story about how I met Andrea, because I think it's magical. People get put into our lives at specific times, I think, for really good reasons. And if you pay attention to what the universe is telling you and what's going on, and you're ready to receive it, I think it makes a big difference. So anyway, I was down at a meeting in Dallas, and I ended up talking to Andrea's dad. And you know how parents are, they're always looking out for their kids. And so he was like, Elizabeth, he goes, you've been doing this consulting thing for a long time, and my daughter is going to start a consulting practice. That's what she wants to do. And she lives in Denver, so you're not too far apart. Would you mind spending a little bit of time with her and just seeing if you can help her to do that and give her some ideas? And I said, of course, I'd love to do that. That would be my pleasure. So it took a little time for Andrea Carpenter and I to get together, but we got connected through her dad, and we ended up sitting in Fort Collins on our patio, my patio up here in Fort Collins, and having this absolutely terrific conversation. As I listened to Andrea and what she was trying to do and her vision of what she wanted to build and all the work that she'd put into her own self-development to become what she was at that time, I realized that what she was going to build was a lot of what I'd already built. And I also, because I'd already done my transition work and I knew what I wanted, I knew my timeline, I knew what I was looking for. And at the time I was not actively looking, and, with all in all transparency. But I think I was able to see that Andrea was potentially somebody that I should be interested in looking at potentially my successor. Because one of my foundational beliefs, of course, is why would a younger person go build exactly what an older person's already done? Why couldn't they come in midstream and pick it up and even do more with it instead of starting over? Because it's such a hard thing for everybody to start over in those situations. So anyway, Andrea and I started chatting, and I'll let Andrea tell her side of that meeting and kind of leading up to that. So our goal here today is for us to do a 2-part series. We're going to tell you a little bit about our story and hoping that it will help you to start to ponder what yours might be.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. I think something you just said right at the end was like, why would someone try to go build something that someone else has already built? And I left like to think back to like a 1 hour, like we spent 1 hour together on the porch, and to leave being like, is it kind of silly to like build my own thing if something like this already exists? And what does that look like? That can be a hard place for, I'll just call myself the successor now, like in this example, like that can be a really hard place for someone coming in to say, whoa, okay, I have this impact I want to make. I have this idea. I have all this energy. I had done a lot of work gaining clarity around the type of thing I wanted to do, what my strengths were, what I had to bring to the table. And so to begin to shift from, I'm going to be able to do this totally myself, from how could I activate myself on a team? It definitely wasn't just in the hour, but the hour was a really good catalyst for me to begin thinking about that, which has been pretty transformational just in the way that I've been thinking about life and work over the last year as we've talked and considered potential opportunities for the two of us to work together. So all of that leading up to it was right. Dads are good meddlers. Parents love to do what's right for their children. My dad has always like really encouraged me to just have conversations. And it wasn't just conversations with you that I've had over the last 2 years. It's been conversations with countless people that I'm so grateful for, who have shared their stories about completely building something from scratch, or buying something completely that already exists, or going into a partnership with someone where they had good synergies together. And you can learn a lot from different people's stories to understand, okay, what are my strengths and what's going to be best or right for me in any given situation based on life timing, what I'm excited about doing. And I think if I hadn't had that clarity, or I hadn't done some of that work, I wouldn't have been able to show up maybe in the capacity that I ended up showing up that attracted us to each other, just because that clarity really did. Yeah, I think the clarity really just helped provide that catalyst.
Yeah. It's exciting. It's so exciting. I remember leaving that meeting when you left our house, and I remember being cautiously excited because it opened up a new opportunity. I think one of the biggest things that owners face, and maybe even a reason why they don't want to do the planning, is because, or even, have a strategy, is because they don't have their who figured out yet. And it's like, well, until I figure out my who, then, and who would be a good possible, I don't have anything to work on. So I think that, I do think that understanding what your journey is helps you to look for the who and helps you to find that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and I was cautiously optimistic that maybe this was an interesting thing. It was a complete unknown, and that hour was, it was impactful and memorable for sure.
And it's worth mentioning though, just how candid you were with me, which is something I really appreciate. Like, we're sitting there, you're like, I obviously can't promise anything, but like, I've been thinking about this and I could see you fitting. And like, we've only been talking for 40 minutes so far, but there's a world where I could see you fit in. Like, how do we evaluate together if you fit, if I fit, and what does that look like? Is that something you're interested in? And I think as someone who's younger, someone who's still growing as a leader, that was like, it was a little ego boost, maybe like, oh, there could be something like someone that I view as very impressive, who's doing the type of thing that I want to do, sees a place where I could contribute and provide value. And that's pretty cool. Like, that made me want to pursue exploring it in more earnest, for what it's worth. So I appreciated that, the radical candor, for lack of a better term, that we were able to have within 30 minutes of meeting each other.
Yeah, that was pretty exciting. It was a pretty exciting time. So, okay, we'll fast forward a little bit. So we met each other and both left, I guess, positive with that. And we started having some conversations. One of the things that I have put a lot of weight into over my career is this. It's a personality profile called the IMAP, and it's a multi-construct personality profile that I was introduced to it probably 25 years ago, and we purchased it probably about 10 years ago. And I have to say, in full transparency, that when I met my husband, I did a very similar thing. I met him heli skiing in British Columbia. And one of the first things I did is say, hey, would you take the IMAP? Because I want to see who you are. And my PhD psychologist, who used to be a past business partner of mine, he would say, it takes 6 months off of getting to know somebody, basically. And so we did the IMAP, and I think it was a pretty interesting experience for me and for Andrea. And so discovered that we had some great opportunities, I think, to pair together and to really have some synergy where we could help each other to do more. So Andrea, you tell your side of that IMAP.
Yeah, she's like, well, okay, here's this thing that we have everyone do to sort of start. And I'm like, okay, like, at the very least, I've spent some time and I've taken, I like the personality assessments. People could fall on either side of the fence, right? I'm always like, okay, let's like see how accurate this is about myself and if I agree with it or if I don't. And there was some stuff primarily, there's a couple buckets across the top. There's one called a refiner. And when Elizabeth describes this, I was like, wow, like I've done a lot of work to try to define like who I am and how I'm going to fit in a team. The refiner basically means you can come in and you can iterate, and you can take to the next level, something that, someone else has already started or been working on. And I up at this point, I don't know, it'd been 3 or 4 months that I had been dipping my toes into what does this coaching consulting business practice look like? What is my IP that I'm going to build? And I was already so tired. Like there was already a lot of stuff that I was like, I love the facilitating part. I love, like I could name the 10 things that I loved about it. And I could also name the 20 things that were sucking my energy, which was, I didn't love totally working alone. I got a lot of energy working with other people. And creating all the IP from scratch. I could come up with the idea, but I was missing the like build the first iteration. And so the refiner made sense because I can take something, and I have a background as a user experience designer, which basically you're taking things and you're iterating, you're improving, you're making it better. So that kind of clicked for me. I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I remember Elizabeth, you saying like, you actually came out way more refiner than I thought, which was kind of exciting to you because you're like, we actually could complement each other really nicely as partners. So I don't know if you have anything else to add on that.
Yeah, no. And that was part of it is because I absolutely am the creator of IP. And then I quit, right? It gets built and it gets built once, and then that's good. And then we're moving on. And for somebody to come in and take what we built, which we have a sizable amount of intellectual property, with many, many, many tools that are helpful to people trying to figure out what they want to do with their transition. And it really steps them through depending on where they are, whether they're in the very beginning of it or partway through it. They're just helpful tools to organize your thinking and organize, again, what you're looking for and what you're trying to accomplish with it. So it was great to see that IMAP and to know that we do not, between the two of us, we do not have what we call very many natural points of conflict. So probably it gave an initial view in a very short period of time of, wow, there aren't a lot of items that we need to pay special attention to. And so we can pay attention to the few and just get going, which was nice. So that was the IMAP process. So we did that. And then we started talking about what a partnership might look like. And knowing, because of the work that I've done for so many years, knowing that it's the owner's responsibility to guide the whole thing. The owner's the leader. And usually the successor, even if they're super excited, want it, even if they're your child at times, they won't push you very hard. They sort of are waiting for you to make the move, and then they'll come along or tell you what they think. But they're not pushing you. And it's very uncomfortable usually for an owner to feel pushed. That's one of the things that our owners really don't want to experience in their transitions. So we started talking about, I brought that up, and we started talking about what it might look like at a very high level. And I actually shared my roadmap with her. I shared my transition strategy because my strategy, it has a date when I think it would be a good idea for me to have transitioned out of my role, of course, but also transacted for a lot of reasons. One might be for me to go enjoy my life, my grandkids, monetize some of what's invested in this company so that I can enjoy that. But on the flip of it, what about my legacy? What am I trying to leave behind? Because part of my motivation was, what happens if I don't do the work and I don't figure this out? And we have all this intellectual property, company gets shut down, the IP sits in a closet and basically deteriorates and nothing ever comes from it. I was like, wow, wouldn't that be sad for that to happen? So, and all the employees not have jobs, et cetera, because I care so much for everybody. So anyway, I shared that roadmap, which was kind of frightening in a way, because I didn't know whether my timing and my vision and what I wanted would meet her needs. And I think we both as we started down the road, we both talked about things. Open communication is a big key. And also, in a way, negotiated some of our timing and made some shifts so that we could see coming together. But that took my reflection. And Andrea, you can tell your side here too, but I think it took some reflection on your side as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier that the transitioner tends to be the one sort of initiating conversations and things are happening. Like it can feel like such a long process or a wait. So like, here I am, potential successor. I'm like, well, am I supposed to be building my business? Am I supposed to be waiting to kind of like talk or like think about what our next steps are? What am I doing? How do I fit into this? So I totally sympathize with anyone who's sitting like in this place as a successor. Like when that timing is murky, just know, like if you're the business owner, you're the transitioner, because Elizabeth was so open and we left a conversation with, okay, the next action, the next thing we have to do is this. It helped to keep me focused, because otherwise I could have felt myself drifting away, drifting out, from the conversations. And when Elizabeth mentions her roadmap, there's obviously lots of pieces of the roadmap that we looked at. One was the objectives matrix, which we do have as a resource. We love to share that with people just because you'll see right here, it was big. So in the objectives matrix, like what's important to Elizabeth personally, to her and her husband and her extended family. And she was talking about what was important to her employees and her legacy and things like that. She had written all of that down in her objectives matrix, but before she ever showed me hers, she had me also write mine. And so Elizabeth goes through, she shares her objectives matrix, and I pulled mine up and I was like, there's a lot of like just alignment between the two of us in spirituality, family first, wanting to care for people, people first, the type of growth that she wanted the business to have and the type of impact that I was hoping to make in a business that I was hoping to grow. And because I had done my thinking and she had done her thinking, then we came together to see where are we aligned or where are we different? Where do we need to have conversations? It was a really, really helpful tool. So I think that was conversation 3. So it was, hello, nice to meet you. Let's talk about our IMAP. Like, what are our skills? And then like, let's go super deep and talk about like objectives for our entire life and where we think we're going. But all of that led to me feeling, okay, this could be good. Like, how do we start to explore this more? That's low risk to you, low risk to me. And that's kind of when we started talking about me coming in to potentially just do some consulting to support the team.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. And, going back to that objectives matrix, that's a foundation of our process. And one of the reasons why it was built in the first place is we're trying to figure out, how do you want to live your life? And I think sometimes, and as from the owner's perspective and in my experience, the owner's trying to figure out how they're going to live their life. And they're also still trying to figure out how to make the other person's life work without actually knowing what they want, without actually having them do that work. So it's as important for you to understand what you want as it is for you to understand as an owner what you're trying to achieve. If you don't know the problem, you can't solve it. That's the engineer in me. And I think it's very important to have that foundation. So we did go there right away and found that we were aligned. So that meant, when we build this company, then when we build this partnership, we'll be building it to support ourselves in our lives for the long haul, which, why would you go do something that isn't going to work for you in your life? So that worked out well. So we started having conversations about coming in and, again, I think just sharing everything with you. We talked about sweat equity. We talked about, Andrea coming in and she was like, well, I could come in and I don't need to be paid and I could come in and we could just work together. And been there, done that in my past. And so I thought, we don't know if this partnership's going to work and we don't know if we're going to get to the end of it. And it's easier just to pay somebody for what they're worth, right? Have them come in and contribute. And it worked out great for us. So she came in. She's been working since September. So I think we probably met each other in about
July.
Oh, it was July.
It was July.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it took us from July until basically about mid-September for you to start working with us. And she came on in a great role, made a huge difference in the company. And we're still under that model. Currently, we're still under that model for lots of different reasons, but the model worked. So it gave us a chance it's like living together before you get married in a way. We got to, because some successors, business owners know because they worked together for a long time, but they haven't worked with them in a capacity of being a partner. So this gave us the opportunity, since we didn't know each other, working together. We've created some new content together and done some really neat things. And we've also, Andrea got to see kind of the workings of the company and who this team was that she might be joining and also leading in the future. So I think there were a lot of benefits to having you come and work with us while we were still trying to figure out the partnership and the details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in all transparency, to be where we are now, it's probably fast. It might be faster than a lot of other businesses are moving. And it's really just, I think, a testament to us both like leaning in. Where's the gut? There's a little bit of a timeline crunch in that I'm pregnant and expecting a baby soon. So that also was like, created a little bit of urgency for us to begin to have discussions really real about just all the things that can come up when you're a partner with someone. So I think that's probably, Elizabeth, I don't know, a great introduction to how we began to talk, sort of what led to me beginning to work in the business, and maybe we call that here. We would love feedback from any of our listeners. If you like this format, if you like us sort of talking through the process and the conversations that we've had around our potential transition and what that looks like. So,
yeah, it's exciting. It's an exciting place to be. It's frightening. A little bit scary at times for a lot of different reasons, both emotional and financial on both sides. There's just so many pieces and parts to it. And but it's fun to be able to share it with you. And I hope we're both hoping that it'll be helpful and that you'll enjoy listening to it. So learning.
Awesome. So yeah, make sure to check out part 2, which we'll release in a couple of weeks.
That's right.